Okay, let's do this. Hey guys, James MC Reviews here, and it has been a very busy 3 months. Between all the videos I made in August and September, taking a trip to Florida, traffic heating up at my job, uploading a whole damn sub-series throughout the month of October, a lot has happened and I have a lot to catch up on. So, welcome to this very late, very crowded catch-up review. Invincible Adam Eve is an hour-long Invincible prequel special detailing the origin of Adam Eve. And much like everything in Invincible, it is really fucking sad. Just seeing her home life with her adopted family and how they treat her, and then her real father coming back into her life, to seeing the horrors of the lab that created her, it's really sad. But it's not a complete downer. It still has great voice acting, top-notch animation, amazing action, and essentially it just makes me want season 2 to get here all the more quickly. 4 out of 5. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem is directed by Jeff Rowe and written by Seth Rogen, and is a new animated take on your favorite heroes in a half-shell. This one portrays more of the teenage angle and deals with them wanting to be accepted while also trying to stop a group of mutants from destroying humanity. I liked this movie, but I didn't love it. I'm a very novice follower of the Ninja Turtles, so the fact that there were a lot of changes to their story didn't really bother me. There were a few choices in terms of the movie that didn't quite work, like the portrayal of Splinter being a wacky, overprotective dad. While it works in the context of the story and tone, I didn't think it was nearly as interesting. The Turtles themselves were pretty well fleshed out, and the voice actors were really solid. Their connection with April was fine, but I've personally seen it done better in other versions. The humor is very Gen Z, and the over-reliance on modern references gets pretty obnoxious. Of course, the star of the show is the animation. It adopts the Spider-Verse style of mixing 2D and 3D into a hyper-stylized comic-esque look. It also has a very cool paint smear effect to it. It's visually stunning and looks especially great in the action scenes. Like I said, the movie has its moments, but I wanted to like it more than I did. That said, it's not bad. It's an enjoyable piece of Ninja Turtles canon, and I recommend watching it if for no other reason than for the animation. 3.5 out of 5. The Meg and Meg 2 The Trench. Figured I'd put these together instead of doing a separate bucket list video for the first movie, because I really don't have that much to say about either. Both movies at their core are Jason Statham and his ragtag team fighting a giant shark, which on paper sounds awesome. So tell me how these movies got that so wrong. The first movie bored me to tears, which I don't know if it was the movie itself or me just being really tired when I was watching it, or maybe a bit of both. Regardless, outside of a few decent action set pieces and Jason Statham being charismatic as fuck, I was struggling to stay awake. It felt really drawn out, the acting from a lot of the side characters was flat, and it just wasn't engaging. Meg 2 is a goddamn Jurassic World movie. It ups the ante as well as ups the stupidity. Everyone in this movie who isn't Jason Statham makes some of the dumbest decisions you've ever seen. The corporate villains are fucking cartoon characters. This one wasn't as boring as the first one, but it does make you wait through long stretches of walking through the dull, dark ocean floor before getting to some action. Which, all that being said, the one thing both movies have in common is that Jason Statham make them immensely more tolerable. I can see these being a dumb fun watch for most people, but I didn't get that. I was just getting impatient. I gave both movies a 2 out of 5. Gran Turismo is directed by Neil Blomkamp and is based off the true story of scrawny gamer turned professional racer John Martinborough and the trials and tribulations he faces. I was curious about this movie from the trailer. The fact that it was based on a true story and some of the shots got me interested in how this movie would turn out. Then I kept seeing the trailer in front of every goddamn movie for 5 months straight, and I got sick of it. That's not to say I thought it was going to be bad. I was more so just seeing it to get it over with. And I'm pleased to say it was really good. It's not anything you haven't seen before. It's the classic underdog story with the classic underdog story trope, but that framework fits with the movie they're making. They really get you to feel for this kid and cheer him on when he's going through these races. The acting across the board is great, with David Harbour being a standout for sure. The racing scenes are shot and edited immaculately. It keeps the adrenaline and suspense pumping and gives you angles that, to my knowledge, I haven't really seen in many racing movies. Sure, the movie may have run a bit long. Sure, there were some cheesy lines, but overall it was a fun set and I was invested throughout. 4 out of 5. Last Voyage of Demeter is directed by Andre Øvredal and follows the crew of the Demeter as they attempt to survive a voyage to London with a monster on board. I feel like it's important to mention that I watched this movie a few hours after watching Bram Stoker's Dracula, so the visual flair of that movie kind of played a part in undercutting my enjoyment of this movie. Or maybe this movie just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. And that's not me saying it was bad by any means. I really like the cast, particularly Corey Hawkins and Liam Cunningham. The production design was really well done, and it did do a decent job building tension, but at the same time, it didn't really do anything to stand out. It just kind of looked like a generic horror movie. And whether you loved or hated Bram Stoker's Dracula, you cannot look at that movie and just call it a generic horror movie. 3.5 out of 5. Spider-Man Lotus is the infamous Spider-Man fan film directed by Gavin J. Knopp. For those who don't know, in the lead up to this movie's release, amidst a smattering of delays, the film fell under controversy because of racist remarks made by the director and lead actor, allegations about mistreatment of VFX workers, and a whole host of other shit that I'm sure people more in the know have already been over. I mostly stayed out of the loop in terms of the behind-the-scenes stuff with the movie, both the drama and the movie itself, so going in, I really didn't know what to expect. I saw all the outrage and the poor reviews coming in, but I still wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt. And about 25 minutes in, I thought, well, I mean, this isn't anything groundbreaking, but I don't know why Twitter is so angry and why it has all these one-star reviews. Then the remaining 2 hours happened, and I said, huh. I get it now. This movie seems to be borrowing inspiration from multiple different sources of Spider-Man. The comics, the Raimi films, the Mark Webb films, and basically Frankensteins them into a dull, drab, depressing story about Spider-Man being sad about Gwen Stacy's death. What Amazing Spider-Man 2 summed up in like 10 minutes, this movie drags out for 2 hours. It is all just monologues and sad music, and it's just so fucking boring. There are things in the story that I liked. I thought the stuff with Harry and his father was really interesting, and I like some of the stuff with Spider-Man and the terminally ill kid, but that stuff is smothered underneath so much bullshit and none of it is interesting. This is a Spider-Man movie that has hardly any Spider-Manning in it. There's barely any action, and when there is action, it's shot like an episode of Power Rangers. The CGI, for the budget that they had, looks pretty solid, but some of the transitions between the CGI and the live action can be kind of jarring. The acting as well is pretty mid also. The guy playing Harry is good, and the Goblin was pretty solid for a few scenes that he was in, but Peter was mostly just reading the lines, and MJ, oh honey, her delivery is so robotic, it was kind of amazing. Look, I don't like bashing stuff that was clearly made out of passion, and I will always champion independent filmmakers, but that doesn't absolve you from criticism. Plus, this movie wasn't really made out of passion, it was made out of spite. It was an arrogant 17-year-old kid who hated what they did with the MCU Spider-Man and thought he could do better, and failed miserably. Even if you take the controversy out of it, what you're left with is a dull, boring misrepresentation of Spider-Man, with a couple of alright scenes in it. It's free to watch on YouTube, so if you're curious, then by all means check it out, but you're probably gonna get really bored for a lot of it. 1.5 out of 5. Strays is the new R-rated Will Ferrell talking dog comedy, and it was exactly what I figured it would be. If you saw the trailers and you laughed at the cute dog saying swear words and making sex jokes, then you will probably find this movie funny. Me personally, the novelty got really old fast, and I was just waiting for it to be over. The two funniest scenes in the movie were the mushroom scene, not because of the scene itself, but because of the aftermath, and the very ending, because of how over the top and bizarre it gets. Other than that, I'd say just skip it. 2 out of 5. Blue Beetle is the new DC movie directed by Angel Manuel Soto and introduces Jaime Reyes into the soon-to-be rebooted DCEU. I honestly kind of feel bad for this movie because it's a decent movie, it just so happened to come out at the worst possible time. A time when the superhero genre is in flux, the DC universe is about to be reset, and actors in Hollywood can't promote their project. And because of that, it's tanking really hard at the box office, which I don't think is really fair. I mean, it's not the greatest movie ever made. It's a very copy and paste story that's basically Mexican Iron Man, and it's very clearly a streaming movie that was upgraded to a theatrical release. But that being said, it does have some really cool action, some really solid performances, funny moments, as well as a lot of heart. Not the best, but still worth a watch. 3.5 out of 5. Rye Lane is a Hulu original directed by Rain Allen Miller and is about two 20-somethings who spend the day together connecting over their shitty breakups. And there's no other word for it. This movie is just cute. The two leads are charming, their issues are relatable, and they have great chemistry together. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, it's a very cliched boy meets girl story, but it didn't really need to be anything more than that. The cinematography was surprisingly really well done. The film has a very cool visual flair, especially when portraying certain scenarios. Like I said, nothing amazing, but a charming watch. 3.5 out of 5. Bottoms is directed by Emma Seligman and is about two high school lesbians who, in an effort to bone the cheerleaders they have crushes on, start a women's fight club to teach self-defense and hijinks ensue. I went into this pretty blind. I don't even remember seeing a trailer for this. So if you have any interest in seeing this movie, maybe skip this part of the video and go in blind like I did, because you will have a blast. It's a very overdone story about person telling a lie in order to get something and then the lie becoming out of control. Movies like Dear Evan Hansen and Not Okay come to mind, but the thing that places this movie levels above those two is that it's unequivocally a comedy. It does not try to take itself seriously at all. It has a twinge of self-awareness to it, and it plays up the absurdity of its concept really well. It also does a good job of building up and paying off jokes throughout the movie, but you'd have to see it to know what I'm talking about. The other reason this movie works, whereas Evan Hansen fails, is that the characters are actually likable. Yes, they are doing a selfish, stupid thing, but you kind of enjoy watching them bullshit their way through the plan and how invested they get. And the performances across the board are great. Rachel Sennott and Ayoade Adibri should be on every casting director's radar now. I don't want to talk too much about this movie because I don't want to ruin it, so go see it if it's still in theaters. It was a lot of fun, 4 out of 5. Dumb Money comes to us from the director of I, Tonya and Cruella and tells the absolutely insane story of the GME stock revolution of 2021. The central focus is on YouTube commentator Keith Gill, aka Roaring Kitty, who inadvertently sparks the flames of rebellion against Wall Street. I should mention last year there was a documentary about this same situation released that I thought was really interesting. I cover it briefly in this video if you're interested. The doc centered around 5 different people who had a stake in GameStop, the roller coaster they were put through, and the bond that formed between them. This movie kind of does something similar in that it follows multiple characters. It shows their hardships and struggles that lead to them taking the ultimate gamble, with Kitty as the driving force. But they never really cross paths with each other. It feels like several different stories stitched together. With that being said, those stories are interesting. They do get you to care about each of these characters. The runtime and trying to balance all these characters, some do get a bit underdeveloped though. The actors were all great. I liked Paul Dano and Pete Davidson. The movie was funny in spots and even kind of heartfelt. And even though I have no knowledge or interest in the stock market, this story still fascinates me. It's not an amazing movie, but I think it's worth a watch. 3.5 out of 5. The Creator is directed by Gareth Edwards and is about an undercover soldier played by John David Washington who is at the center of a war between humans and AI. When he comes across an android girl with the power to control machines, he takes on the task of protecting her and questions whether or not he's been fighting for the right team. This movie was really good. It does have a very overused and predictable plot, but where it shines is its visuals and its characters. This movie is from the director of Rogue One, which is one of the best looking Disney Star Wars movies. Edwards brings the same visual flair to this movie, creating a breathtaking world with intricate set and character designs. I like the connection that builds between Washington's character and the kid, and I thought the acting across the board was really well done. Definitely worth a watch. 4 out of 5. The Exorcist Believer is the newest film in the Exorcist franchise. I watched the first film for a bucket list video a while back, and I really liked it, but I skipped the sequels. And from what I've heard, I'm not missing much. I went into this movie with low expectations, and while it's not as bad as the early critic scores make it out to be, it's still not very good. It seems to be prioritizing creepy visuals over building tension and character. In the original, Reagan doesn't go from normal to nuts. There's a slow build-up. You see her descent further and further as the movie goes on. Here, it seems like they just want to get to the action quicker, so you don't feel as disturbed by it because it feels like it comes out of nowhere. They also skimp out on giving the 2 girls any character or building their connection with their families or each other. When someone is being possessed in an Exorcist movie, you're supposed to feel something, whereas here, I didn't really care what happened to them. They also build up returning actress Ellen Burns as playing a bigger role and then completely waste her. Ultimately, this movie was just kind of dull. 2 out of 5. Killers of the Flower Moon is the newest film by Martin Scorsese detailing the real-life murder plot of the Osage tribe of Native Americans in the 1920s. While I'm not the biggest fan of Scorsese, this movie had one of the best trailers of the year, and I was really curious to see it. And after watching it, it was really good. It was an interesting and well-woven story with compelling characters. It did a good job balancing its grim subject matter with slight moments of levity that didn't feel forced. The acting across the board, but especially from the 3 leads, was excellent, and I'm more than confident that they will get Oscar noms. The movie is 3.5 hours long, and while I definitely think it could have been tighter, it was never boring. I was struggling to keep my eyes open in the first act, but that's probably because I saw it at 10 in the morning. Overall, a really great sit. 4 out of 5. Dix the Musical is directed by Larry Charles and is about 2 arrogant, successful men who discover they were twins separated at birth and decide to work together to get their parents back together. As a trailer, this movie looks kind of fun. As a movie, this was really fucking obnoxious. There were 1 or 2 chuckle-worthy moments, but as a whole, this feels like if Star Kid had a budget and wasn't funny. The characters are all annoying, the songs are awful, the humor is grating, and it thinks just being weird for the sake of being weird is funny. It's down there with Indy 5 and Spider-Man White Lotus as one of the worst of the year. 1 out of 5. Also, I figured I'd throw this in as like a mini bucket list episode. This past month, they re-released the original Beauty and the Beast as part of Disney's 100th anniversary. It's been years since I saw it, and I wanted to see it on the big screen, so I went. And of the Renaissance-era Disney movies I've seen, this is a comfortable third place. Aladdin will always be my favorite, and Lion King is a very close second. This, while it's not my favorite, is still a really damn good movie. Seeing it on the big screen amplifies how well the animation is held up. The backdrops, the detail, the mixing of 2D and 3D just looks amazing. The songs are all great, the characters are all charming. It's an overall great watch. 4.5 out of 5. I also saw the 2003 Park Chan-wook movie, Old Boy. It was celebrating its 20th anniversary with a remastered theatrical release, and I had never seen it before, so I went to see it. And it was a lot. I don't want to say too much about the movie because part of the fun are the twists and turns. So if you haven't seen it yet, I would highly recommend it because it's one of the best mystery thrillers I've seen. The acting is amazing, the cinematography and editing is excellent. It covers really dark themes but balances them out with moments of levity that feel natural. And the ending, holy fuck. Just please go watch this movie. By the time this video goes up, it'll probably be out of theaters, but if by some miracle it isn't, definitely go check it out. 4.5 out of 5. Okay, and that does it for another Ketchup review. Thank you for sitting through this whole thing. Let me know what you've been watching these past few months. Check out some of my other videos and stay tuned for more content coming soon.